This is our V-Smart vinyl cutter from AM, and today I'm going to show you why you should get one of these opposed to a desktop vinyl craft cutter. Today I'm going to be showing you a few things that this can do. We'll be doing contour cutting, vinyl cutting, sandblast cutting, plotting out a map for a house, as well as craft cutting some cardboard on our cutting mat. So let's start with the plotting of our house plan. One thing that you have to keep in mind with this vinyl cutter is that most craft cutters for your desktop do not come with the ability to hold a roll, which allows you to do more than just an A4, and you can now do a continuous roll with ease. In order for us to do the plotting, we're going to need our included pen holder, and this will allow us to plot out the plans on our cutter instead of using our cutting holder and then we cut out our cardboard. So let's do it. We're going to take our pen holder, push it in here nice and firmly, push it down like so, and make sure that it's nice and flush with the metal piece here. And once you've done that, you can then tighten your screw to hold it in place. Now that we've put our pen holder in, we can go have a look at our design, and once we're ready with that, we then need to adjust our cartridge to make sure it's in the right place and our pressure, and then we can start. I've set up my page to the size that I'm looking for. From there, I'm going to go File, Place Image. We're going to select the image that we're looking for, which is our building plans. From there, we move it to the middle, and then we go to Trace. So now we want to convert it from a JPEG into a cut line. From there, you can see your design on the right hand side. If you're happy with the settings and the way it looks after you've zoomed in and it looks fine, you can go and say OK. And there we have our building plan ready for plotting. Now that our design has been traced out, we can now go to our cut option here, but we're not going to be cutting, we're going to be plotting, but it works exactly the same. We go down to cut and we're ready to go. Now we can set up our position and pressure for us to do our plotting. So let's do that. Once we have put in our paper and we've made sure it's nice and straight, we can now do our adjusting by moving to the position that we want to start plotting. From there, we need to just check our pressure to make sure that it's not too high. Our force is at 150, which is perfectly fine. You do not want it more than 200, otherwise you're going to be damaging the pen holder, as it's a pen and it's not a blade. And your velocity at 260, you can make that a bit less, which I recommend, as you don't want to be going too fast, otherwise you end up bending your pen. And once you've done that, you just push enter and menu again, and we're back to. So press cut. That looks pretty cool. And the next thing we're moving to is the cutting mat. We have our cutting mat from AM right here, and once we have cut out a piece of cardboard that's going to be the same size as our cutting mat, from there we can now peel off our backing and make sure to keep this in a safe place, because you're going to need to put this back on once you're finished. Once you've peeled off the backing and put it in a safe place, we can now pick a relatively flat surface for us to apply our cardboard. You want to make sure that you've centralized your cardboard as evenly as possible, and then just start from the middle with a nice little kink, and you just push down like so. And don't push too hard, you just want it to be nice and flat, as there is adhesive on here. If you push down too hard, when you peel this off, it will rip your cardboard. Now that we've done that, we're ready to put in our cutter. But of course, we need to change our cutting tool with our pen tool, because now we'll be cutting on our cutting mat and no longer using the pen. Let's do that. First we need to loosen our screw so that we can get the pen out. Then we make sure that we take our cutting tool and it is our blade in. We want to push that down so it's nice and flush, and then we tighten it. We're going to take our cutting mat, we're going to lift our rollers and make sure that you pick the correct location. And you want to make sure that it's evenly between two rollers. Like this will be too small here, so we're going to move it over to these two, and we're just going to push it through and then line it up and push them back down again. Move our head into place. Once that's in place, now we can check our settings before we push cut. I'm going to go ahead and push menu to get to our settings, and we are going to do a test cut at 150 and then just leave our speed at the 85. And once we've checked that, or if we've done any changes, we push enter, menu again. Now we need to just move our head into a place that we can do a test cut once we're in that area. Then we can push test, which will do a little rectangle. We can pull that out. We're just going to see if it has been cut all the way through, which it has, which is perfect. Now we don't need to fiddle with our settings. We can put our blade back to where we want to start cutting. We can now go and look for our artwork. Going file, place image. I'm going to be picking this one here. Open. Okay, now that is far too big, so we're going to make that smaller. That's better. From there we need to trace this because we need it as a vector. So we go up to our trace tool. And if we're happy with the way that it's been traced, we can then push OK. From there we need to remove the top layer and delete the one that was behind so that we can get our vectorized image. Now, just before we do anything else, we need to make our page size a bit smaller so that it suits the size that we are doing. And there we go. Now that we've got our design on our page to size, we can then go to our cutter tool. And there we can see our design is nice and laid out. And once we're happy with everything here, we can then go and push cut. Now that that's done, it looks really nice and crisp. We're going to move this one forward and then peel off the excess to leave behind our artwork. Well, that looks really nice. I'm very impressed with how it's cut. It's really nice straight edges. One thing that you need to keep in mind when you're cutting on a cutting mat, like I said before, if you push your card down too hard onto this, you'll be tearing your paper, as well as you'll remove most of the glue that's on this mat. And if you do that, then it doesn't become reusable, so you just need to lightly put your cardboard down. It's just there to hold it so that nothing falls off while it's cutting. Another thing you got to keep in mind when you're cutting with this cutting mat, you got to make sure that your speed is lower. The less speed you have, the more detail and finer edges you'll have when cutting on cardboard. Now that that's done, we can now move over to cutting our sandblasted vinyl. Okay, for our sandblasted vinyl, we're going to use the same design, our same size. The only difference here is now I've put in our sandblasted vinyl, and now we just need to test our settings, do a test cut, and then push cut. First, we need to move our cutting blade into place. We're going to do a test cut and then test our settings. Going to push test, bring it back down. Okay, we've cut 100% through, which is perfect. You just need to check on the other side whether or not you've cut all the way through. If you can see the indentation of where the blade has been cut and you can feel it is quite significant, it's quite deep, then you know that your pressure is still a little bit too much and we need to make it less, so it just cuts through. Now that we know that our pressure is too deep, we're going to go and push menu, and we need to change our force over here, and we can either do that via the buttons at the bottom or we can do it via our touch screen. And we're only going to go 10 less from 150 because we know it was just a little bit too deep, but it was cutting through fine. And once we know that, we push enter to save it and push menu, and then we can move our cutting blade to where we want to start cutting. Okay, now we are ready to cut. Now that we're all set up, now we can push cut. That looks really, really nice. It's cut precise and it has really good detail. Now that that's done, we're going to move over to cutting normal vinyl. Now we're going to be using our normal vinyl. Here I have it in a roll format, and we're going to be placing it on top of our adjusted roll holder that comes standard with this cutter. Once we put it in our holder, we can now push it through our cutter. Make sure to lift our pinch rollers and push it through, and then just push them back up. I'm going to be cutting with the same settings as we did on the sandblasted vinyl, as I know that it will be the same settings, but always keep in mind when you're changing between vinyls and you're not so sure, please do a test cut and test your settings. It will save your bacon and it's worthwhile doing it. As for the design, we're going to use the same design as before, and now we're just going to push cut. Now that this is done, we're going to move over to manual contour cutting. Once we've loaded in our printed vinyl, we are going to make sure that the image is facing us and it's not upside down. Then you want to move your cutting carriage to around about here. From there you can go to your program and go and click on your cutter tool. Once you've done that, you can move over to print plus cut on the bottom left corner. Push that. Now what we need to do is push next, and it shall move to the first point. If not, we may need to adjust it from there. So push next, Okay, now we've got our activated laser, which you can see over here, and we're going to use the arrow keys on our computer to now adjust our laser to position number 1. And when you're happy with where it is now, you can then push next on your computer. It should move to position number 2. If that is not exactly where it's supposed to, like we see here, all we got to do is use the arrows again on your computer to adjust it to where you want. Then push next again. And now we're on our final third spot. And again, it is a little bit out, so we'll just adjust it there. And now that we've done that, just before we push cut, we're going to zero our blade to where it needs to be. Now we are finally ready to cut, and we can push cut on our computer. It looks good, it's cut exactly where I wanted it to, and it's done exactly what it's supposed to have done. Now that you've seen what this V-Smart vinyl cutter can do, let me tell you why I feel like you should rather go for this cutter opposed to a desktop craft cutter. This vinyl cutter comes with a beautiful stand, so it's not on your table and you can move it out the way if need be. It also comes with an adjustable roll holder so that you can do a big roll of vinyl rather than doing A4s or A3s. It's just very nice and easy to just go and buy a roll and put it onto the cutter. Another great reason why you should get this is its bed size. Most desktop craft cutters do not have a size of 740, which makes this cutter the perfect cutter to do larger jobs. And it has a really good ability to do small fine letters between 2mm and 5mm in size. I really recommend this vinyl cutter, and if you want to find out any more information on this cutter, please contact our sales team at 060 600 6000.
At am.co.za, we have always taken pride in our products and customer service. Our Google rating represents our commitment to providing our clients with the best support possible. We have officially achieved a rating of 4.9 stars and an astounding 699 reviews for our Jet Park branch in Johannesburg at the end of 2020. Hlobosile Khumalo, a level 6 local guide who has 64 reviews all over the country, says, "The tech support team is on point. I had an issue with my machine. I called them and they said I must bring it in. The person who helped me checked everything and made sure everything was 100%. Kind staff members helped me load my machine in and out of my car." This was just one of the many appreciative reviews we have received. These tags mean a lot to us. Thank you so much for your support. Let's move our attention to our branch in Montague Gardens of Cape Town, where we have achieved a rating of 4.8 stars and an amazing 299 reviews. Level 7 reviewer Dash Somolu, who has 119 reviews on Google, says, "Great company, great products and very well priced items. The training we received from Messias Chunga was top notch. He was very knowledgeable and knows his stuff." Another satisfied customer amongst many. We would like to thank you, our loyal customers. Thank you, South Africa. am.co.za. Achievement matters.